Now that you've had the opportunity to watch videos of Minister Phil Reeves and Shadow Minister Tracy Davis, I have the job of summing up some of the Labor and LNP policy initiatives that have been announced during this election campaign. The information that I will try to convey to you comes from both their videos, but also some of the information that we've been publishing on our e-news and the blog posts we've been entering into our website. Overall, PeakCare has been heartened by the intentions of both parties to pursue policy directions that will have an impact across the whole of the child protection system and not simply on the tertiary end of that system. In particular, we've been very much encouraged by some of the announcements that have been about services that should be universally available to all families, as well as some targeted prevention and early intervention innovations that both parties intend to pursue. From Labor, we've heard about the intention to double the number of early year centres with the establishment of 4 new centres across the state. We've also heard from Labor about their Kindergarten Plus policy and the intentions of that policy to progressively move towards making kindergarten universally accessible to all children in Queensland. From the LNP, we've heard about their intention to introduce a maternal and child health service that will be available to all parents and newborn children across the state. It was very pleasing to also hear Shadow Minister Davis acknowledge the value of the Labor introduced Helping Our Families initiative, and also encouraging to hear her talk about the LNP's introduction of a fostering families program that would be targeted towards families where neglect of children may be an issue of concern. From the LNP, we've also heard some innovative policy announcements about the establishment of a telephone line for children in regional areas of the state and the establishment of education programs in schools that would better assist children to protect themselves from abuse and to report abuse if they are feeling threatened by that. We've also heard from both parties about intentions to improve the services for young people who are preparing to exit from care. From Labor, we've heard a stated commitment to the continuation of the Youth at Risk initiative. So that means $13 million continued over 3 years for those services already providing this important initiative, but a topping up of that allocation by a further $2 million. From the LNP, we've heard a commitment stated that they will ensure that young people who are exiting care and transitioning to independence will continue to have support made available to them until they turn 21 years of age. Perhaps the most controversial announcement during the election campaign was one made by the LNP, and that concerned the establishment of a new Ford inquiry. I have very clear recollections of the Ford inquiry. During the time of the Ford inquiry, I held a senior position within the Department of Families, I think it was called at the time, in the Youth Justice Program. I look back at the Ford inquiry as representing an absolute milestone in the history of child protection and youth justice services in Queensland. In part, I think that was due to the grace and wisdom and expertise that Lenine Ford brought to that inquiry in leading it through, and also to the very skilled prosecution that was undertaken by Kate Holmes during the prosecution of the public hearings. In various positions that I've held, both within the government and non-government sectors since the conclusion of that inquiry, I made a compulsory reading for staff that they would read that Ford report. I couldn't see how anyone could work in Queensland in either youth justice or child protection services without first considering and reflecting on the content of that very, very important inquiry. So a lot of credit goes to a person who was the minister at the time, which was Anna Bligh, in initiating that inquiry. I think that whilst we've had mixed reception from member agencies and supporters, it needs to, I think we need to consider what the purpose of an inquiry would be. So some people are saying to us, we don't need an inquiry, that we're already familiar with what needs to be done. We've learned a lot of lessons, we've got information available to us. We shouldn't waste the money on inquiry that could be better spent on services now. Others are saying to us, we do need an inquiry, that an inquiry gives us a chance to properly reflect, consider where we have come to since the time of the Ford inquiry, and it does provide a basis for providing a roadmap into the future. My own view is that since the Ford inquiry, we have moved on. There has been other information that has become available to us, both through the CMC inquiry in 2004, from the recently released Victorian inquiry report, and further afield from the UK review of their child protection system that was conducted by Professor Munro. It does seem very understandable, however, that a new government would want to take stock, that they would want to see, well, where are we up to now and where do we need to go in the future. Next week, we will all be entering a new phase in the history of child protection services in this state. That will either be with the continuation of a Labor government or with the newly formed LNP government, and possibly, if an LNP government, the initiation of a new inquiry. If it is a new inquiry, then we would see that a critical issue that must be addressed within that inquiry is a disproportionate representation of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander children in the child protection system. If it's not an LNP government and a continuing Labor government, then we would similarly be saying that this needs to be addressed as a major and critical issue within child protection in Queensland. As we enter this new phase, PeakCare will be repositioning ourselves. In many ways, the position papers that we've already prepared provide a very good, solid groundwork for submitting information that might be considered by an inquiry or a Labor government, and also to reshape some of that child protection system that we would like to see in the future. In concluding this video, I would sincerely like to thank our member agencies and supporters for the contribution that they have made to us over recent weeks. That includes their attendance and the contributions they made to our roundtable meeting on the 31st of January, the development of our position papers and the ideas that are represented within those, the comments that they've been placing on the post, and simply watching and talking about and discussing the content of these videos. I'd also like to thank the PeakCare staff who have worked tirelessly in making sure that the information that we present to you is current and hopefully in a format that you found interesting. And also to Jim and Julie from Brown Velvet Cinema and Mark Jeffrey, our media consultant, in very much assisting with the quality of these videos. Lastly, I would also like to sincerely thank Phil Reeves and Tracy Davis and their advisors for the time they took in both preparing responses to the critical questions that we posed to them and in also filming their responses. As you can imagine, this was a very, very busy time of the year for both. So it was a great testament to their dedication to child protection that they made sure that they put aside the time to record those videos. I would like to personally wish them both well in the election and hope to be working with both of them in the future in whatever capacity that might be. On behalf of PeakCare, I hope that you have found these videos to be both informative and enjoyable. There's only 2 days left to go before the election. We're looking forward to continuing our conversation with you after Saturday.